Welcome everyone to 3 Count Commentaries. I am your host MagMongoSlade. Today we're going to talk about the marathon that was AEW Forbidden Door from June 30th, 2024. Now, not to get too personal, not to, go too far off, but I had an aunt that passed away today. So she was my mom's last sister. My mom had 3 sisters. They all passed away. So there's nothing on this show was a way for me to try to escape how down bad my mom has been. So I kind of needed the 4 hours. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm actually awake. I'm actually kind of energetic because I was down bad earlier. Me and my aunt was not that close, but just seeing my mom go through that at her advanced age. My mom is like 64, 65 years old. Her sister was 66, would have been 67 this year. And just seeing her go through that, I was like, I need a break. I need a vacation from this. So AEW actually having a really long show to distract me for several hours actually did me wonders. So usually I would complain about the length of the show, and the show was too long. It was very long, but it distracted me from everything else that was going on. So there is going to be a certain level of positivity to the review, even though I'm going to keep it real and say some of this stuff I don't really go for it. I don't really go for it. And we're going to start with that main event. So the main event, Swerve Strickland defeats Will Ospreay. Overbooked shenanigans. Very good athletics from both of these guys. Why Swerve Strickland would agree to have Will Ospreay kick out of every single one of his finishers, I don't know. Why he would agree, why they would do the diving spot was great. Swerve Strickland does the dive from the top onto a standing Will Ospreay onto the table. The table doesn't even break. It makes this incredible gnarly noise. It looks amazing. Huge pop. You would think that would be the finish. It wasn't. And that's when you realize you're watching AEW. They don't know how to go home at a high spot. They had Will Ospreay get hit with the swerve stomp. He kicked out. He then tried to continue fighting. No. He got his arm broken or arm snapped or something. He tried to keep fighting. Then he got kicked in the head. The house call. He kicked out of that too. And it ended up with Will Ospreay basically just jumping into the big pressure of what they call the JML driver in WWE for Swerve to win. Now, the overbooked part came from the ref bump. So, Will Ospreay's firing up. He goes to hit the hidden blade. Swerve moves. He hits the ref. Now, all of a sudden, Don Callis is out there, and Don Callis has a screwdriver. The significance of the screwdriver is this is what Don Callis used to turn on Kenny Omega. So, he's trying to give Will Ospreay a screwdriver. All of a sudden, Prince Nana comes out of nowhere. He shoves down Don Callis, which makes sense because that's what Prince Nana should do. Now, Will Ospreay grabs the screwdriver and threatens to stab Prince Nana with the screwdriver. And now I'm like, wait a second. I know that Don Callis is his heel manager, but Will Ospreay ain't been working heel. He has done nothing heelish up to this point, and now all of a sudden we go from him. For starters, he did a Hayabusa cosplay for his entrance, which is very babyface. Because Hayabusa rules, all right? Hayabusa rules. And he's doing Hayabusa. He's, I don't want to hurt anybody with the Tiger Driver 91. And now you're going to stab a dude in the head with a screwdriver? How does that make sense? For no reason, though. Don Callis has done nothing for Will Ospreay to have that level of dedication that I will stab somebody in the head with a screwdriver. Bro, what? That took me completely out of the match. I'm like, what is this? He could have took the screwdriver and threw it or something like that. And then Don Callis is the reason why he lost, which probably would have made more sense Since Don Callis would say, like, you're not going to listen to me, I'm going to screw you over. So then maybe Don Callis stabs him with the screwdriver. Just some other way of telling this story. But otherwise, the match was great athletics, which everybody expected to. I was surprised to see Jim Jones there. Wrestling seems to need somebody like Jim Jones. Jim Jones is an interesting figure, man. I like it. I like seeing him there. That was very cool. It's about 20 years too late for Jim Jones to matter, but I'm cool with it. It was fun. The New York crowd got into it. It was a nice little touch for Swerve Strickland to be able to pull some strings and get one of his hip hop buddies in there. So it is what it is. Well, it just tells me that Will Ospreay is going to beat him next time because he kicked out of everything, which is typical Will Ospreay. And they're going to end up having a rematch soon, which, I can pretty much smell coming a mile away. I mean, it is what it is. Great athletics, overbooked match, probably too long. JR was on commentary for this match. He did okay. He didn't sound too bad, despite his health issues. He actually sounded coherent. He didn't sound like either presidential nominee. So I was not upset about that at all. He was fine. Taz, we're going to talk about Taz a little bit later, but Taz is really getting under my skin. He's really getting under my skin with some of the snarky comments that he makes on commentary. And he's not the heel commentator. So well, at least I don't think so. Is he the heel? I think he is technically the heel commentator, I guess. But some of the snarky comments, I think that he just kind of takes the piss out of people. And to me, I don't think we need Taz. But he really aggravated me for something he did on Twitter. So we'll talk about that later. Match 10. So match 11 was the main event. Match 10. Tetsuya Naito defeats Jon Moxley to retain the IWGP Heavyweight title. So now the belt's back in Japan, where it should be, so all the Japanese guys can stop whining and bitching and crying. It's back on one of you boring... Look, Naito used to be great. Now Naito is sleepwalking through matches. I barely paid attention to this. This made me very, very tired. This match seemed to go on forever. There seemed to be no end to it. So, but Naito won. Yay, we're all excited. Dijak on Twitter, he actually teased an appearance at Forbidden Door like anybody cares. This is a perfect place for him. He fits in like a glove in AEW. Just another move guy. I could see him go out there and do hurricanranas and take house calls, 3, 4, 5 in the head and be just fine. It'll be great for somebody. I don't know who. Mercedes Moné defeats Stephanie Vaquer to win the New Japan Strong Women's Championship. She is now a double champion. She wins with the Moneymaker plus the bank statement. I don't know what they're calling it, but that is what it was called in WWE. It's called the bank statement. I guess they're going to come up with a name for it in AEW. But Stephanie Vaquer, let me say, I walked out of this thing really, really impressed with her. How smooth she was, how aggressive she was, how professional she was. She looked good. Stephanie looked great. Huge thumbs up. She walked into the match with like 3 belts. I didn't. She really should have only came with the belt she was going to lose, because now all the belts that she's got, it's like, okay, well, why didn't she just win all of those belts? Why was only 1 belt on the line? So a lot of people are gonna want me to talk about all of the discussions that have been going on with Mercedes and whether she's got creative control, and it's an interesting thing to hear her say out of her own mouth that she has creative control. Because why would you give Sasha Banks creative control? Hulk Hogan, okay, he's Hulk Hogan. Why would you give Sasha Banks creative control? Oh, we'll talk about that some other time. I just don't understand it, and I'm thinking maybe it's a different kind of creative control, and it's not veto power like Hogan had, but maybe she has far more input than most other people because they did hire her own writer, so it's 100% believable that she has creative control because that's what Jennifer Pepperman was brought in for. So it's basically, The Rock has Brian Gerwitz that brings him his coffee and massages his feet, and maybe even procures various things for him, like things in needles and stuff like this. So maybe this is what the Jennifer Pepperman thing was. Sasha Banks, she has a huge head. Maybe she saw The Rock had his own personal writer, and she figures I need to have my own personal writer. And now we now we got this machine dangling over everybody's head. The match itself was fine. The crowd didn't seem to care, and then out of nowhere, just started chanting "fuck the Celtics," and then they got into it. I guess it was a Celtics fan in the front row. He was wearing a jersey. They decided to just start chanting "fuck the Celtics," and then all of a sudden, Sasha Banks became the heel of the match, which shrug, because she wasn't the heel going in. The match was like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes maybe. Through the majority of the match, she was not the heel. And then all of a sudden, she's the heel just because she's from Boston. It's like the people just realized it through the midway point of the match. Like, hey, wait a minute. She's from Boston. It's like, you went from not caring to just booing her. I think this match was certainly a match that went on too long. It should have been shorter, but Stephanie looked great. She, if you give her the right platform, if AEW wanted to invest more time in her, she could be great. If she was like in NXT, that would be fantastic. I know CMLL is the big time in Mexico, so she's not going to get much higher than she is now in Mexico. So she's in really a good spot, but she's a really good performer. I really like Stephanie. I don't think her English is very good, though. And you need to be able to communicate with an American audience. Of course, Britt Baker comes out. Big surprise after Sasha Banks wins. Britt Baker is tanned. She's fit. She's cut. I was very impressed with how Britt Baker looked. I wasn't really impressed at her stone face, like her emotionless face. It was almost as if she didn't want to be there. I'm like, oh boy, nobody wants that. Now, this is the biggest match that they could do. Britt Baker versus Mercedes is probably the biggest women's match they could do. A perfect match for Wembley. So I'm all in on that. So I give this one a thumbs up in terms of creative. Having Britt Baker come back for the biggest show of the year to wrestle with your biggest female star in the company, thumbs up. Why is it for the mid-card women's title? I don't know. I don't know why that is, but I guess it don't matter. It just don't matter. So I'm okay with it. Glad to see Britt Baker back. AEW is going to get stronger as more people start to return. MJF, Britt. Eventually, Adam Cole's going to come back. Eventually, Edge will return. Eventually, Miro will come back. Eventually, Malachi Black will be able to wrestle singles matches, again. So, we'll see. But it was good to see Britt Baker come back. Great pop for her, too. We'll see if this thing goes off the rails, though. Because I'm very interested in how Britt Baker, who has notoriously had a bad attitude, if she's going to be working with Mercedes, and Mercedes has creative control, and she also oftentimes has a bad attitude, is that going to work out? Or is we going to start seeing this female version of CM Punk, where Mercedes is going to pitch something that Britt Baker doesn't want to do, or is not comfortable with, and the rumors and innuendo are going to start up. Except this time it's going to be on the women's side about how all the women are frustrated with Mercedes and yada, yada, yada. We will see. We shall see. I will keep an eye on this situation if I were you. All right, match 8, the TNT Championship match. I'm about to say Jack Briscoe. My God, I'm so sorry. Jack Perry defeats Dante Martin, Lio Rush, Konosuke Takeshita, Mark Briscoe, and El Fantasmo. Jack Briscoe. I keep on saying Jack Briscoe again. Jack Perry. Why am I thinking about Jack Briscoe? Jack Perry winning is the right decision. Jack Perry really should have just been given the title and then, pull a Triple H and force him to defend it against some people. And, over time it gets more and more vicious. But this ladder match was kind of needed on this show because this match happened right at a dead spot in the show where it seemed like people did not care about anything. And then the ladder match happened and there's people crashing all over the place. And, the crowd got into it. Mark Briscoe did a Sabu spot where he jumped out of a chair, springboard onto a ladder. That was great. I want to talk about El Fantasmo, though, because El Fantasmo had an interesting weekend. So he qualified for the ladder match on Rampage. And I saw on Twitter that a bunch of people was chanting Logan Paul at him. So he... So this began, of course, the huge debate over who was better, Logan Paul or El Fantasmo. And this, of course, led to people saying, like, oh, El Fantasmo, he's such a better human being. He's such a better person. He's not a douchebag like Logan Paul. I'm like, man, I watch wrestling. I'm not trying to hang out with these guys. I'm not going to his house. I don't care how generous he is. I mean, is it nice that he's generous? Yeah, sure, it's great. I don't know what kind of person he is. It don't matter. He's a guy on television. I can say this, though. El Fantasmo fits like a glove in AEW. I mean, he's not, like, bad, but, like, generic and nondescript physically. He fits perfectly. He's nothing like Logan Paul, though. He just looks kind of like him because he kind of has the same haircut and kind of has the same hairstyle. And they have, similar athleticism, but I wouldn't say like they're the same. Logan Paul brims with charisma. Whether you like him or not, he has charisma. He has personality. El Fantasmo, he might have personality. He might have charisma, but outside of seeing him occasionally in Japan and occasionally in TNA, can't tell you much about him. But he feels like a guy who would be right at home in AEW more regularly. And I'm definitely surprised that Tony Khan had not invested in bringing him in more. His big spot in the match, he being El Fantasmo, of course, was taking a Konosuke Takeshita Blue Thunder Bomb through tables. If you wasn't going to give the belt to Jack Perry, which was absolutely the right decision, I contend that was true, then Takeshita would have been the best second option. But giving the belt to Jack Perry made sense because it seems to be the direction you were going anyway. And it furthers the Elite story. Whether you like the Elite or not, you have to finish the story that you're telling. And since they're telling the story of the Elite having this huge takeover and they want to have all the gold, Jack Perry winning the title would have made sense. Now, if you would have had somebody else win it, like, say, Dante Martin, and then had Jack Perry screw him out of it and take it from him, that probably would have worked better. Like, for me, I don't like the idea of Jack Perry getting the title fairly. Like, he beats everybody fair and square. To me, it seems like if he's going to be the friends of the boss, he should benefit from that. And what I mean is he shouldn't have had to qualify for this match. He should have either been given the belt or he wins the belt from some shenanigans. Like, you could have just gave the belt to Dante Martin for a feel-good moment. And then booked him to wrestle Jack Perry on Dynamite and then had the Young Bucks and Okada and all them screw Dante Martin out of the belt. To me, that's heat. That's what we are looking for. In a ladder match, there's no real cheating. There's no such thing as cheating in a ladder match. So even if somebody else comes in the ring and helps, there's no such thing as cheating. Now, I also noticed something. That AEW decided to have a 6-way ladder match the week before Money in the Bank. See, that's a good sneak right there. See, if that was reversed, you'd hear about that all the time, right? You hear how WWE, they did a ladder match because they knew AEW was going to do a ladder match. They about to ladder match us to death because now these guys have done it. And next week, when the Money in the Bank show happens, everybody's going to be comparing the two ladder matches, the 3 ladder matches. And most people are going to think the AEW ladder match is better because they like AEW better. But it's an interesting thing here. But this was the right decision, at least, for the person to win. Match 7. Chris Jericho, Big Bill, and Jeff Cobb are defeated by Samoa Joe, Shibata, and Hook. Who cares? I really don't give a shit. And to be quite honest, I don't think we needed so many 6-man tags on this show. There's so many 6-man tags. There's another 6-man tag earlier. Why is there so much of the same kind of stuff? And what I mean by the same kind of stuff is this is completely unnecessary. Went on too long. There's not enough story here for it to matter. And nobody cares about this. You could have put this on Dynamite. You could have put it on the pre-show. You could have put it on Collision. And it would have been just fine. It did not need to be on this show. It didn't need to be on this show. Jericho was funny, though. Him saying that he's from Long Island, so they don't really want him to retire. And then Taz actually is useful, because he's the guy from New York. He actually explains how Jericho technically is from Long Island. So I thought that was funny. There's been a lot of a brouhaha online, too, about Jericho. In so much as it's a big deal that he popped up in CMLL. There are some people who seem to think, the American fans are chanting, please retire at Jericho. Meanwhile, the Mexican fans are absolutely thrilled. The Lucha fans, they can't stop talking about how awesome it is that Jericho is going to go back to CMLL and how he's going to wrestle Mystico. Oh my God, it's so amazing. And all the Americans are like, what the hell are you talking about? Jericho sucks. And it's an interesting thing that he still has such a strong reputation in Mexico, even though he seemingly has tarnished his name so much in the United States, that he can still go to Mexico and be huge. And this is what CMLL wanted out of the deal with AEW. They wanted to get Jericho in the ring with Mystico. And that's going to be fun. So Jericho gets to be a huge star in Mexico. Corazon de Leon. I didn't think he was that big of a star in Mexico, if we're being honest. But then again, I'm not Mexican, so I don't know how big a star he was. It just felt to me like he was a guy who kind of stopped there, and he worked there, and then he moved on. But apparently, he got like his face on a banner or something in CMLL. Like he's like a Hall of Famer down there. I'm like, oh God. All right, go ahead, Jericho. If the Americans don't want to appreciate you, the Mexicans will. You can go down there and make a huge living. You might be like the Stan Hansen of Mexico. Who knows? Orange Cassidy versus Zack Sabre Jr. Oh my God. Oh. Whew. This sucked. This was so boring. I was at the point during Zack Sabre Jr.'s entrance where I was hearing Chris Benoit's theme song, bro. Like, I was thinking, like, if he touched that damn collar one more time, you are not the Fonz. I wanted to just... I was violently angry looking at Zack Sabre Jr. and how he insists on, hey, just pulling, just tugging, just constantly tugging that damn collar. I'm like, bro, it's as straight as it could possibly be. It can't get no straighter than that. It can't get no straighter than what you're doing. What are you doing? Stop touching your collar. Cut it out. He just kept doing it. Anyway, I have no interest in Zack Sabre Jr. He won the match, which was, I think, interesting. I wasn't expecting him to win. Wasn't expecting him to win by submission either. Orange Cassidy falling down the hill in AEW, I guess. Don't matter. Match 5. Match I wanted to see. Mira Shirakawa loses to Toni Storm, which was the right decision, of course. Toni Storm cut an absolutely phenomenal promo standing in glass on Collision. which goes to show how truly amazing she is. She's been phenomenal every step of the way since starting this gimmick. And a lot of people are still talking about, oh, how she failed in WWE. Bro, she has grown leaps and bounds in these last 3 or 4 years. She's been very good, especially the last 2. Since, she turned heel, she's been amazing. So she didn't have this in WWE. If she did, she wouldn't have been doing what she was doing. Hell, she didn't have this when she first came into AEW. She is one of these people that growth and taking chances has done tremendous work for her. She, of course, defeated Mina Shirakawa, but the most important thing here is the storyline, right? So, Mariah May is there. She looks like she's about to go to prom. She's got flowers for both of the girls. So, it's not like, I thought at first she was going to give flowers only to the winner, but she gave flowers to both of them. They worked the match. Tony won. I think she won pretty clean. And then after the match, Tony and Mina hugged, and then they did a triple kiss in the ring. And boing. Hot lesbian action, the last day of Pride. They got it in, brother. They got it in. This was fun. I don't know if Mina Shirakawa is going to be sticking around. Hopefully she does, because she has a lot of personality, and her English is actually not terrible. It's not great because she's Japanese, but it's not terrible. It's not awful. Match 4. Bryan Danielson defeats Shingo Takagi. This is a very physical match. It was everything I expected it to be. Bryan Danielson has been going on Sports Illustrated and various other sites talking about how he doesn't want to be AEW World Champion, and he doesn't think that he physically can have the kind of matches necessary to be AEW World Champion. And it's crazy. The guy spent over 10 years in WWE. He still don't get it. Nobody gives a fuck about your matches, bro. You have a name and you can talk. That can get people into the building. Your reputation precedes you. You can be the world champion and not be able to wrestle like, Bryan Danielson in 2005. For God's sake, bro, where's your confidence? Where's your killer instinct? He needs he needs a B12 shot or something like that. But he did a good job here. Shingo was physical as hell with him, beat him up, threw him all over the place. And Danielson managed to win with a disarmer, which is, Becky Lynch's old finish. So I was actually very impressed. I think they're going to force him to win the championship, too. I think they're going to book him to win the title, even though he don't want it, which is a positive thing because they kind of need him to have it. And I know that he says that he doesn't write himself. He doesn't do his own creative, and that he didn't in WWE either. He'll have input for other people, but he doesn't do his own because he doesn't think you could be impartial, which is true. You can't be impartial when you're, the booker and you're booking yourself. So I really respect his humility and him not wanting to take up space from guys that he feels should have those opportunities. But you got to do what's best for business. And what's best for business is Bryan Danielson being on top. Working on the 4th match of this show doesn't really aid in a nothing match against Shingo Takagi. Doesn't really aid AEW. If you want AEW to grow, you got to be willing to push it. I know Sting wasn't willing to push it, and everybody was fine with that. Sting, to me, needed to work at least a couple of singles matches, and his finale needed to be a singles match. But, Danielson is now saying, I don't want to be world champion. It's like, okay, either you guys have the most humble legends of all time, or there's some funny business going on. But they're probably going to force feed this belt to Danielson, and they probably need to, because he needs to be the champion. He's still the biggest star in the company. And he doesn't need to be champion that long, but he needs to win it and carry it. And maybe, handpick his own successor or something. Because this company needs a mainstream personality as champion. And Swerve is good. but they're just going to put him on the back burner again. You know, they booked all the shenanigans for him to beat Will Ospreay when he could have just beat him, you know, with one of his finishers and then call it a day. But no, we got to have screwdrivers and table spots and then multiple finishers. It's just stupid. Next, another useless six-man tag. The Young Bucks and Okada defeat the Acclaimed and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Tanahashi always loses now. Very depressing, but he's very old, so it's okay. Max Caster rapped. He mentioned Joe Biden. He also used the word bitch like 15 to 20 times. I didn't care about this. It's a nothing six-man tag. Who gives a shit? Match 1, MJF defeated Hechicero. Okay. What does this mean to the card? What does this mean for anybody? This meant nothing for nobody. On the pre-show, only 2 matches are worth talking about. A really fun six-man tag. Well, Michiko, Phoenix, and Penta defeat Hiromu, Takahashi, Titan, and Yota Tsuji. I'm a big fan of the lucha style, so this was fun for me. Also a big fan of Hiromu. Hiromu Takahashi was hamming it up on Collision when he heard he had another chance to wrestle Mystico, and it was great. I've been pushing for him to be used more. I don't understand why he's on the pre-show, but whatever. If you were going to have a six-man tag on this show, this should have been it, and this should have been the only one. That because you can spotlight everybody that's on the show, in match, and it fits because Lucha Libre. If you work the lucha rules where, you know, roll out of the ring, other person work into the ring, it works, you know. It is slapped together because it's just a bunch of Mexicans and Japanese guys in the ring, but Hechicero versus MJF, you know, whatever. There's been some chatter about Penta maybe letting his AEW contract expire and maybe jumping ship to WWE. I'll believe it when I see it, but I'm not sure if it'll work nowadays. I think he's been downplayed so much. Now, his English is better than it used to be, but I don't think Pentagon means a lot right now. They would have to rehab him in WWE because he's been beat to death in AEW, and he hasn't been treated like a superstar. He's been treated like a tag team guy. But it would be interesting, you know, in NXT or something like that, because he has an interesting look. But he's mostly gimmick. You know, he's not going to go out there and try to wrestle everybody to death. But I guess it shouldn't go without saying that now that Mercedes has won that New Japan belt, that there's now more belts floating around. There's an absurd amount of championships in play in AEW. They get rid of Moxley's belt, you know, the IWGP Men's World title. They got rid of that thing, only to collect another New Japan belt in the process. So they got rid of the ROH TV title too, which was floating around for a while. What was that bum's name? I don't know what his name is. I forgot. He was the guy from Aussie Open. He was a singles champion. He ended up losing to one of the CMLL guys. So that belt is gone. But it won't be long before somebody else pops up with a belt from another company defending it in AEW, because these people must have multiple belts. And I really kind of ask the question now at this point, like, Mercedes has 2 championships. Is she more important than Toni Storm? Is like Britt Baker made her big return against Mercedes and not against Toni Storm. Is the TBS title supposed to be a bigger deal than the World Championship? Because I don't think so. I don't think that would be the intention of Tony Khan. But I understand you're telling a story with Toni Storm and you don't want to interrupt with Britt Baker, which is sensible. But I don't know if bringing Britt Baker back against the mid-card, well, if you even want to call her a mid-card champion, she's kind of a double mid-card champion. I don't know, because it was a while back that Eddie Kingston had like 4 belts and all this kind of stuff. It was kind of ridiculous. And they're making sure that they have way too many championships and that their talent is draped in belts. It's just unfortunate. A lot of these belts don't seem to have a lot of meaning attached to them. That's what it would have been nice to emphasize that when it comes to that New Japan Strong Women's belts. We just know that it was a belt that Mercedes had that she wasn't supposed to lose, and she ended up losing. We don't know that it actually has any real meaning. I guess it means that she can go and do whatever she wants in Japan now, too. I don't know. Whatever happened to that other belt that they had? I'm not talking about AEW. I'm talking about New Japan. They had another women's belt, too. The IWGP Women's title. Whatever happened to that belt? Did they, melt it? They deactivated it already? Before I let you guys go, let's talk about this Taz situation. So, you had Jordan Grace on Twitter, and Jordan Grace tweets out, "Beat me if you can, survive if I let you." Taz immediately jumps in the comment section, giving her a lecture about how this thing is copyrighted and is trademarked and all this kind of stuff. And they go back and forth, and then Taz starts arguing with fans. They're all going back and forth. And I'm sitting here looking at this, and I'm like, when was the last time Taz had a wrestling match? You would think a legend who is being, I guess you could say, it's an homage to a legend. Like, she's not putting it on a t-shirt trying to sell it or nothing like that. This is what people are telling Taz. People are saying, like, she tweeted out something that you could have taken as an homage. And he's like, "Well, I just want everybody to know that I trademarked that." I'm like, bro, who gives a fuck? Nobody's buying no Taz merchandise with that quote on there. You ain't relevant in the ring. Nobody cares about you, bro. And that kind of stuff with Taz being an absolute mark for himself is so frustrating, because it was a similar thing with Francine recently. And I think it was almost the exact same thing happened. Some intern that runs WWE's Twitter account tweeted out that Liv Morgan was the queen of extreme, and Francine just absolutely decided, I have that trademarked. Yada, yada. I was like, it's a tweet. It's one thing if it was a t-shirt, and then another thing if that's what, some marketing materials or something like that. It is a tweet. Relax. Emphasize, who the hell ever paid a ticket to see Francine? Like, these people who have not done anything in 30 years are like, and it's kind of strange because you see some people, like you see people doing Stone Cold Stunners all the time. You see 100 people doing cutters and RKOs all the time. You see people wooing and doing Dusty Rhodes impressions. You see, guys stealing stuff from like Terry Funk, and people are stealing stuff from like their own peers. Like, Cody stole moves from like Will Ospreay and stuff like this. And it's people who are 30 years out of the business trying to protect this one little thing that keeps them relevant. And it makes you so annoying. And it makes you incredibly petty. Again, it's one thing if they're trying to put it on a t-shirt, trying to put it in a video game or something like that. They're trying to reproduce it for money. That's one thing. But anything else, you could just consider it an homage. If they say it in a promo or something like that, you could say at the very least, hey, I take this as a compliment. It's insane that Taz is such a mark for himself. He still complains. It's 2024. Again, Taz has a wrestling match since 2001, which I don't think he has. I don't think Taz has had a match since 2000. And he's complaining about people wearing orange. Like, bro, you can't trademark the color orange. Who cares if somebody wears orange and black? That's not your thing anymore. You don't wrestle. Nobody cares about you, Taz. Like, it's so weird. He gets so wrapped up in himself, and he's starting to get real snarky on commentary. I'm like, bro, I done had it up to here with Taz. Like, I'm getting kind of full on Taz. But, I get it. He, guys got to try to protect his his money coming in or whatever. But I don't think anybody's buying any Taz merchandise. So who cares if she tweeted out something so petty? It's such a petty argument to get into too, and to have and for it to go on as long as it did. It went on seemingly forever. You know, it's like, imagine if the Sandman had to tweet every time somebody used a Singapore cane. You know, it's like, bro, like, it's so stupid. And then you made yourself look corny and lame. Because then she just went on to just start quoting other people who gave her credit, like Shawn Michaels. Like, oh, thanks. You know, who act normally. And, you're out here freaking out about this. It's like, it's one thing if it's a character thing, like the FTW title thing. It's a character. It's a gimmick. Jericho is saying it's for the world, and Taz is like, oh, it ain't about that. It ain't about the world. You know that. But this girl tweeted something, and you had to attack her over it. And now everybody's looking at each other like, why are you so petty? Why are you so small? And now they asking questions like, when was the last time Taz had a wrestling match? You don't wrestle no more. So what if somebody using your tagline? So what if somebody using your moves? So what if somebody using your color scheme? You don't wrestle. You've been out of the ring longer than you was in it. So, and if Terry Funk and people like that have been cool with, and how many guys running around calling each other the Nature Boy? It's 100 fucking Nature Boys running around. Some at the same time Buddy Rogers was around. There's 3, 4, 5 Nature Boys running around. But have mercy, somebody tweet out, beat me if you can, survive if you... Get the fuck out of here, Taz. All right. Thank you guys for your time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed Forbidden Door. If not, hopefully you enjoyed my critique of Forbidden Door. If not, well, just call your cousins and aunts and grandmas or whatever and tell them you love them. Thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.